Hello and welcome to the latest Lukozer retro game review video. For this one it's something a bit different. We are back on the good old Commodore 64 and the game this time is Street Hawk. Now if you were around back in the day when this was, well, making waves, that might cause you to raise an eyebrow. Street Hawk on the Commodore 64. Well, there's a bit of a story behind this one in case you weren't around at the time. Street Hawk was a television program which was basically trying to cash in on the popularity of Knight Rider, where the car was the star, so they thought, right, we'll do something, you know, along those lines, we'll make some money out of it. So they changed the car to a motorcycle and that became the Street Hawk. This was somewhere around 1984, and of course as soon as the program became somewhat popular in this country, in the UK, up jumped Ocean and said, right, we'll buy the license to make a game of it, just like they did with Knight Rider. And again, just like Knight Rider, there's an awful lot of parallels actually between this story and the story with Knight Rider. As soon as they bought the license, they started advertising the game in magazines. It was appearing in computer and gaming magazines in '84 before anybody had even sat down to begin preparing an actual idea for the game, let alone before they began to even program it. So 84 became 85, then 85 became 86, and there was still no sign of Street Hawk. And of course Knight Rider then finally got released after 18 months of constant advertising, because Ocean had paid a fortune to first of all get the license and then this 18 months advertising campaign. So they finally released Knight Rider. And the rest is history as far as Knight Rider is concerned. But with Street Hawk, still no sign of it. Then sometime in '86 there was a computer show, I think it was at Earl's Court, and Ocean of course had quite a major stand there because they were one of, if not the biggest UK gaming software company, and they had a demo of Street Hawk on display. Now I don't know how playable it was, but Zap64 took a screenshot of it. I remember this well. I remember looking at the article. And yeah, it had a screenshot of Street Hawk there. It was a top-down game. You could clearly see someone on the Street Hawk riding through some sort of urban area. And underneath it was the caption, "The mythical Street Hawk still being programmed today." But what had actually happened to Street Hawk was that the unfinished version that was shown at this show was actually the second game. The first game had run into problems, and the programmer, I can't remember who it was, but it was some quite high profile programmers involved in it, just as there were quite high profile in-house programmers for Ocean doing Knight Rider. Well, again, you look at that. So they had these issues and they just could not fix them. So Ocean took the bold decision sometime in '85 to scrap it and start again from scratch. So this unfinished game that was shown at the show was actually their second attempt at making a Street Hawk game. Bearing in mind, of course, by this time they'd already been advertising the game for 18 months, already spent a fortune on it. And then the second game was running into problems. But there was quite a lot done. According to the main programmer, whose name escapes me, if Lemon, in one of his various guises, is watching this, which I'm sure he will at some point, he can probably fill you in on some more details, plus names and more accurate dates. At least I hope you can. If you are watching this, you know, feel free to add some details if you know of any. But yeah, apparently the game was 90% finished, and again it had some major names involved. Martin Galway had composed 2 pieces of music. I don't know if one piece was for the first game that they had started doing, and then the second piece was for the second game, or if the 2 pieces were going to appear in the game regardless of which version was released. I suspect it's the latter. Now, those pieces of music have become available. If you got the Project Galway CD, one of them's on there, but I think maybe both of them are on there, and they're not bad. I mean, they're not Galway's best. I mean, he's got to go quite some distance to better Arkanoid and Miami Vice, but they're certainly not bad. But these more problems cropped up, and with the game 90% finished and Ocean reeling from what happened when they released Knight Rider, they finally took the decision to pull the plug on it. So Street Hawk for Commodore 64 was never released. Now, as far as I'm aware, it was released for the Spectrum and possibly the Amstrad as well. Again, I'm open to correction on that. But the Commodore 64 one never saw the light of day. Which then has you wondering about this. Street Hawk, Level 1, all rights reserved, copyright 1986, Ocean Soft Free / Global Film. Well, this is a demo. Here we are now playing it. Now that sprite in the middle is definitely not a motorcycle. However, the programmer himself said that there were some problems with some of the sprites, and in the you know, what they had programmed in the place of some sprites, you just got this garbage. But you can quite clearly see that not only is this not Street Hawk, but if you had an Atari 2600 VGC, or even if you didn't have one but had seen like various adverts for it, there was a game that was frequently advertised there called Night Driver. And that's what this is. This is not Street Hawk. It never was Street Hawk. neither of the versions that Ocean were working on were anything like this. This is something that has been cooked up by this lot, the 1001 crew. But they've stuck this Street Hawk fake loading screen. They've used Ocean Loader 1 for the music, and they've written Ocean software all over the place. But yeah, this isn't Street Hawk, never was, and never will be. But there are still some emulator and retro sites that have this disk image available, saying yes, it's you can download Street Hawk for Commodore 64. When the truth is, no, you can't. So as far as this game goes, I mean, it's Night Driver for the Atari, well, except it's now been converted to Commodore 64. I'm sure it did come out for the Commodore 64 in something like, you know, 83. It's incredibly basic, it's incredibly shit, and yeah, I would score the game 0 anyway, but this is basically a bit of a public information film that, you know, if you remember the whole Street Hawk debacle from back in the day, and you happen to stumble across the Street Hawk disc image being made available on retro sites, don't bother with it, because this is what you'll get. It most definitely is not the Street Hawk game that Ocean were working on. So there you go, that's Street Hawk, which in reality is Night Driver. 1 out of 10, in fact no, 0 out of 10. It's, you know, they tried to fake it, but then they chose a game that's so crap. They've done so to try and make it look like Street Hawk was going to be every bit as bad, if not worse, than Knight Rider. In fact, Street Hawk was never going to look anything like Knight Rider. It looked more like Miami Vice. In fact, I think Miami Vice might have used some of the routines that were planned for the first attempt at Street Hawk. Again, I'm open to correction on that, but I think that's where it came about, because there are an awful lot of similarities. So there you go, that brings this video to an end. I don't know if I could really call it a review. As far as the actual game that you get here is concerned, it's definitely a 0, and yeah, I wouldn't really credit this lot with anything, because they're trying to you know, they're trying to make a fake and fail miserably. So there you go, that brings this video to an end, and we'll see you at the next one, which will actually be back to proper regular reviews.